I'll expand part 1 of your story into an engaging 800-word narrative in third-person style using simple English. Here it is. The giant ships filled the sky above Earth. They were not enemy ships, but evacuation vessels sent by the Galactic Confederation. Commander Jia Kim stood on the observation deck of the lead ship, watching her home planet grow smaller. Her dark eyes reflected the blue-green world below as it shrank to a tiny dot. "This is wrong," she whispered. The Confederation had voted. Humans were too dangerous to stay among the peaceful species of the galaxy. Their tendency to fight, their long history of wars, their warrior heritage, as the Alien Council called it, all of these made humans unwelcome. Tae Park joined Jia at the window. He was shorter than Jia, but had the strong build of a soldier. His face showed the same pain Jia felt. "We gave them everything," muttered Tae. "Our art, our science, our labor, and they feared us anyway." Jia nodded. For 50 years, humans had worked alongside the 23 alien species of the Confederation. They had shared Earth's music, built schools on distant planets, and helped solve problems across the galaxy. But when the aggressive Vorlak ships appeared at the edge of known space, the Confederation remembered Earth's violent past. "They say, 'We might join with the Vorlak,'" said Jia. "They think we are more like them than the Confederation." Tae's laugh was bitter. "The Vorlak eat their enemies. We haven't done that since, well, for a very long time." The ship's main hall was packed with humans. Children cried. Old people sat in silent shock. Young men and women looked angry. Earth's entire population, all 8 billion people, were being moved to a cluster of planets far from any trade routes or important systems. The ship's captain, a tall, blue-skinned alien named Rill, approached Jia. "We will reach the exile planets in 3 days," said Rill. His voice held no emotion. "The Council has named the system Exile's End. The planets are livable, but not comfortable." "And if we refuse to go?" asked Jia, though she knew the answer. "The Confederation fleet surrounds Earth," said Rill. "Your people voted to avoid bloodshed." After Rill left, Jia and Tai walked among their people. They moved through crowded hallways where families had only the space to sit together. Food was given out in small amounts. "They're treating us like animals," said an old man as Jia passed. "My children are hungry," said a woman holding twins who looked about 5 years old. Jia stopped and knelt beside the family. "What's your name?" "Min," said the woman. "These are my daughters, Ji and Sue." Jia took off her commander's jacket and wrapped it around the shivering girls. "I promise you, Min, we will make a home for them." 3 days later, the ships reached Exile's End. It was a system with 5 planets. From space, they looked harsh, mostly brown and gray, with small oceans. Not like the beautiful blue Earth. The evacuation ships split up, taking humans to different planets. Jia's ship landed on the largest world, which humans quickly named New Start. It had breathable air, but little plant life. The ground was rocky, and the sky was often filled with dust storms. The Confederation ships left supplies, basic shelters, some food, and simple tools. Then they departed without ceremony, leaving billions of humans to survive on their own. The first days were chaos. There wasn't enough food or shelter for everyone. People fought over supplies. Jia and the other leaders from Earth worked day and night to keep order, but it wasn't easy. After 2 weeks, the stored food began to run out. The hunting parties found few animals to catch. The land could be farmed, but the first crops would take months to grow. Jia stood on a hill overlooking the main settlement. Most people were living in tent-like structures that wouldn't last through the harsh storms that came every few days. In the distance, she could see 3 other settlements, each facing the same problems. "We need to unite them," said Jia to Tae. "All the settlements must work together, or none of us will survive." That night, Jia used the emergency radio system to call all settlement leaders together. 20 men and women gathered in her small command tent. "We must become one colony," said Jia. "Share all resources. Create one defense force. Work as one people." Some leaders disagreed. "My people barely have enough for themselves," said one. "Then soon they will have nothing," replied Jia. "United, we survive. Divided, we die." By morning, they had agreed. The human colonies would unite under one leadership council, with Gia as the head. Their first priority, survival at any cost. Gia looked out at the harsh new world. She made a silent promise. Humans would not just survive here, they would thrive. And someday they would return to the stars not as exiles, but as equals. 5 years after their exile, the harsh planets of Exile's End looked different. Where once there were only tent cities and hungry people, now stood strong buildings made of local stone. Fields of adapted earth crops stretched across valleys. Water systems carried precious liquid from the mountains. Humans had not just survived, they had built a new home. Governor General Jia Kim stood at the window of the Central Command Building in New Start City. At 45, her face showed new lines, and her black hair now had streaks of grey, but her eyes remained sharp and determined. "For the northern settlement needs more defense units," said General Tay Park, pointing at a map on the wall. "Their farming area has expanded, and they're more exposed." Gia nodded. Every human settlement had walls and watchtowers. Every building could become a fortress if needed. This was not how humans had lived on Earth, but Exile's End demanded new ways. "Send Unit 8, said Gia. They finished training last week. When humans first arrived, they had struggled just to find food and shelter, but Gia had insisted on building a military from the beginning. Now, every citizen between ages 16 and 60 spent 1 day each week in combat training. Children practiced basic fighting skills as part of their education. "Some of the council members are questioning the military focus," said Tay. "They say we should put more resources into farming and building." "They forget too quickly," replied Gia. "The universe exiled us because they feared our warrior nature. Now that same nature keeps us alive. The human government was simple but effective. A council of 20 leaders from different settlements made decisions together. People earned their positions through hard work and skill, not money or family. Connections. Gia had been elected Governor General 3 times because she kept people alive." Later that day, Gia visited the training fields outside the city. Hundreds of people practiced with weapons made from local metals. They weren't as advanced as Confederation weapons, but humans had always been good at making tools for fighting. "Governor General," said the training leader with a salute, "we have 300 new recruits ready for assignment." Gia walked among the training groups. Some practiced hand-to-hand combat. Others worked with spears and swords. The most skilled used the few guns they had managed to build. "Why do we train so hard?" Gia asked a young woman who couldn't be more than 17. "Because the stars are full of dangers," replied the girl without hesitation. "And humans must be ready." Gia smiled. The new generation understood. 3 days later, an emergency call came from the eastern settlement. Captain Mina Lee's voice crackled over the radio. "Unknown ships landed near our borders," reported Mina. "The beings are not Confederation species. They attacked our outer farm area." Gia and Tay rushed to the command center. "Send reinforcements," ordered Tay. "All available units." But before help could arrive, another message came from Mina. "We've driven them back," she said, sounding surprised herself. "They've retreated to their ships." 6 hours later, Captain Mina Lee stood in Gia's office. She was 30 years old, with short black hair and a fresh cut on her cheek. "There were 20 of them," Mina explained. "Tall, with grey skin and 4 arms. They carried energy weapons we've never seen before. They attacked without warning." "How did your people respond?" asked Gia. "Just as we've trained," said Mina with pride. "We split into 3 groups, one to protect the civilians, one to flank the attackers, and one to face them directly. They expected us to run or surrender. When we fought back with organized tactics, they seemed shocked." "Did you capture any of them?" asked Tay. "One," said Mina. "He's injured but alive." Before they retreated, he said something our translators picked up. He called them Vorlak. Gia and Tay exchanged worried looks. The Vorlak were the aggressive species that had appeared at the edge of Confederation space right before humans were exiled. "Their ship had markings we were able to scan," continued Mina. "When we checked them against our old Confederation maps, we discovered something important. This entire sector borders Vorlak territory." Gia walked to the window again. The Confederation didn't just exile us to get rid of us, she said quietly. They put us between them and the Vorlak. They're using us as a shield, said Tay angrily. They've never encountered humans before, Mina added. From what we can tell from the prisoner, they didn't expect us to fight back so effectively. They thought we would be easy prey. Gia turned back to face them, her decision made. Double the training schedule, she ordered. Begin building more advanced weapons. The Vorlak will return with greater numbers, and when they do, they'll learn exactly why the Confederation feared humanity's warrior heritage. The first sign of trouble came in the middle of the night. A small ship, damaged and barely able to fly, crashed just outside the defense perimeter of New Start City. Human guards approached with weapons ready, but lowered them when they saw who climbed out. A family of blue-skinned Rylans, the same species as the captain who had brought humans to exile 5 years before. "Please help," said the adult Rylan, holding a wounded child. "The Vorlak are coming." Within hours, more ships arrived, damaged vessels carrying different species from the Confederation. Beings who had once voted to exile humanity now begged for sanctuary. Governor General Gia Kim ordered medical teams to help the injured and set up temporary housing for the refugees. They appeared without warning, explained a tall plant-like being named Doltha, who had once been a minor ambassador to Earth. His leafy skin was burned in several places. The Vorlak invaded Confederation space 3 weeks ago. They have already taken 12 systems. Gia called an emergency meeting of the Human Defense Council. 20 military leaders gathered in the underground command center. Chief Intelligence Officer Jun Choi, a quiet man with sharp eyes and quick hands, displayed images taken from the refugee ships. "The Vorlak fleet is massive," said June, pointing to the screen. "Over 2,000 warships. The Confederation has no real military. They never needed one until now." The images showed planets burning, Confederation cities in ruins, Vorlak soldiers, gray-skinned, four-armed beings rounding up survivors as slaves or worse. "How did they break through Confederation defenses so easily?" asked Tay. June's face hardened. "There were no real defenses. The Confederation has peace. Ships, not warships. Their weapons are designed to stop asteroids, not invaders." "But they must have known about the Vorlak threat," said Captain Mina. "They had contact with them before we were exiled." June nodded and brought up another image. Classified Confederation document, taken from the ambassador's ship. "They knew," June said quietly. "This report is dated 1 year before our exile. It predicts the Vorlak invasion in detail. The Confederation Council had 2 options, prepare for war or find a buffer between them and the Vorlak. They chose us as the buffer," said Gia, her voice flat. "Yes," confirmed June. "They exiled us because they predicted this threat but feared humans more than the Vorlak. They thought the Vorlak would spend years fighting us before reaching Confederation space." "But the Vorlak ignored us," said Tay, understanding now. "They went around Exile's end completely." "Because they're smart," said June. "Why fight humans when the Confederation is an easier target?" The room fell silent as the truth sank in. The Confederation had sacrificed humanity in a failed attempt to save themselves. Later that day, Ambassador Doltha stood before the full Human Council. His leafy body trembled, whether from injury or fear was unclear. "My people were wrong to exile yours," admitted Doltha. "We were afraid of your warrior nature, but now we need that very quality. The Vorlak will reach the Confederation capital. In weeks, billions will die or become slaves. Please help us." Angry voices filled the room. "Why should we help those who threw us away?" shouted one council member. "Let them face the Vorlak alone," said another. "They would not have helped us," argued a third. Gia let them speak, let the anger flow. These feelings were natural after what humans had suffered. But when the voices began to quiet, she stood. "The question is not whether the Confederation deserves our help," she said. "The question is, what kind of humans do we want to be?" She walked to the center of the room. "For 5 years we have trained as warriors. We have built weapons and taught our children to fight. But fighting without purpose is just violence. Warriors need something to fight for." "We fight for ourselves," said a council member. "For human survival." "Yes," agreed Gia, "but the greatest warriors in human history fought for more than just survival. They fought to protect others who could not protect themselves." She pointed to the images of Confederation worlds burning. Those people cannot fight. They never learned how. Should they die because of their leaders' mistakes? The room was quiet. Now, Gia continued, her voice growing stronger, the Confederation feared us because they thought humans only fight for conquest or revenge. Let's show them what human warriors really fight for. Justice, protection, and the right of all beings to live free from terror. One by one, council members began to nod. The debate continued for hours, but in the end, the vote was clear. Humanity would fight. 3 days later, Gia stood before thousands of human soldiers gathered in the main square of New Start City. Today we leave Exile's End, she announced. Not as the unwanted, but as warriors with purpose. We were cast out for being warriors. She raised her voice so all could hear. Now we'll show them what human warriors fight for. The crowd erupted in cheers as the first human warships, built in secret over 5 years, rose into the sky. The human fleet entered Confederation space quietly. 100 ships, not large but built for war, slipped past the borders that humans had once crossed as exiles. Admiral Han Song, a man with 40 years of military experience on Earth before, the exile commanded from the lead vessel. All ships report ready, said his first officer. Admiral Han nodded. He was 65 now, with white hair and steady hands. Begin Operation Homecoming. The first images from scout ships showed the devastation. Entire worlds burned, space stations drifted, broken and empty. The beautiful Confederation that had once been too peaceful to accept humans now lay in ruins. Vorlak control points detected in the Proxima system, reported the sensor officer. 4 warships guarding the main station. Hans studied the tactical display. That station houses thousands of refugees. It will be our first target. Commander Subai, a young officer known for unconventional thinking, stepped forward. Admiral, request permission to lead the attack squadron. Han looked at Sue. She was barely 30, but her simulated battle record was perfect. Approved. Take 5 ships. We'll follow with the main fleet if needed. Sue's plan was simple but clever. Instead of attacking directly, her ships released hundreds of small drones that looked like warships on Vorlak sensors. While the enemy fired at these decoys, Sue's real ships circled behind and attacked. The battle lasted 20 minutes. All 4 Vorlak warships were destroyed. Commander Sue's squadron lost no ships, though 2 were damaged. They adapt quickly, Sue reported after the battle. By the 3rd attack, they had figured out our drones were fake, but they lack our creativity under pressure. When we changed tactics, they couldn't respond fast enough. This pattern repeated. As humans liberated world after world, the Vorlak were physically stronger than humans, with superior technology. But human military thinking, developed through thousands of years of warfare on Earth, was something the Vorlak had never encountered. After the liberation of the 7th system, Admiral Han's fleet received a message from the remnants of the Confederation Council. They had retreated to a hidden base and wanted to meet. Governor General Gia, who had traveled with the fleet, went to this meeting with General Tay and Admiral Han. The council chamber was a far cry from the magnificent hall where humans had been sentenced to exile. Now just 12 alien representatives sat at a simple table, fear evident in their postures. "So you have our gratitude for the assistance you've provided," said High Counselor Riel, the blue-skinned alien who had once transported humans to exile. "But we must clarify that this does not change your status as exiles." Gia looked around the room, noting how the mighty had fallen. "I'm not here for your gratitude," she said. "I'm here to present terms." She placed a data pad on the table. "Human military protection in exchange for ending our exile, full reinstatement to the Confederation with equal rights, and acknowledgement of what you did, placing us as a buffer between you and the Vorlak." The councillors protested. "This is extortion," said one, a crystal-like being. "No," replied Gia calmly. "This is negotiation. Something you should have tried with us 5 years ago instead of exile." High Counselor Riel raised a hand to quiet the others. "And if we refuse?" Admiral Han stepped forward. "Then we return to Exile's End, and you face the Vorlak alone." The council asked for time to discuss. Gia gave them 1 hour. When they returned, their answer was clear in their defeated postures. "We accept your terms," said Riel. The humans are welcomed back to the Confederation. News of the agreement spread quickly through human ranks. Some celebrated this victory, but others remained cautious. "Can we trust them?" asked Commander Sue when she heard. "They betrayed us once." "Trust must be earned," replied Admiral Han, "but for now, they need us too much to betray us again." The liberation campaign continued with renewed purpose. Now fighting. As official Confederation forces, humans led the defense of remaining free worlds. The Vorlak, surprised by this new resistance, began to retreat from some systems. On the planet Lumar, a world of ocean and small islands, a group of local children watched as human soldiers drove off Vorlak occupiers. One small child, a member of the water-breathing Lumari species, approached a human soldier with a mixture of fear and wonder. "Are you really human?" asked the child. "My parents said humans were dangerous monsters." The soldier, a young woman, who had been only 15 when exiled, knelt down to eye level with the child. "We can be dangerous," she admitted, "but only to those who threaten what we protect." Across Confederation space, similar scenes played out. Species that had once voted to cast out humans now watched in awe as these same exiles risked their lives to save them. At a strategy meeting, Gia noticed something new in the eyes of the alien representatives. Not fear, but respect. "The Vorlak are retreating from the outer systems," reported an alien general. "Your warriors have accomplished in weeks what we thought impossible." "Not just warriors," corrected Gia. "Protectors. That's the part of human heritage you never understood." As weeks passed, more worlds were liberated. Confederation citizens no longer hid when human ships arrived. They celebrated in the streets. The warrior heritage that had once made humans feared was now seen as salvation. The tide of war had turned. The massive Vorlak fleet surrounded the Confederation capital planet, a beautiful world of purple oceans and silver cities that had once been the center of galactic peace. Now it was the last stand in a war that had consumed hundreds of worlds. On the bridge of the human flagship Justice, Governor General Gia Kim studied the tactical display. Her hair had turned completely gray during the 6-month campaign to push back the Vorlak forces. Around her stood both human and alien officers, working together in a way that would have seemed impossible a year ago. "The Vorlak Emperor's ship has moved to the front line," reported Commander Subai, pointing to a massive vessel at the center of the enemy formation. "They're positioning for the final assault." Admiral Han Song's voice came through the communication system from the surface of the capital planet. "Ground forces are in position. We've evacuated as many civilians as possible to the underground. Shelters," Gia nodded. "Begin Operation Unity." The battle plan was complex, but built on everything humans had learned about Vorlak tactics. First, smaller ships launched quick attacks against the enemy's outer defenses, drawing their fire. Then, as the Vorlak focused on these threats, the main fleet split into 3 groups, each taking a different approach to the enemy formation. The Vorlak adapted quickly, as they always did, but the constant changes in human tactics kept them off balance. For every move they made, the human commanders had 3 counter-moves ready. 2 hours into the battle, an unexpected message came through on all channels. The Vorlak Emperor himself, speaking in the common language of the Confederation. "Humans," his deep voice rumbled across the communication systems. "Why do you fight for those who rejected you? Join us instead. Predators recognize predators. Your Confederation exiled you because they knew what you are. Warriors, like us." Gia opened a channel to respond. "We are nothing like you. Humans fight to protect, not to conquer." The Emperor laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. "Pretty words, but I see the truth. You enjoy this battle. The violence is in your blood." "Perhaps," admitted Gia, "but what's in our hearts matters more." The battle continued with increasing intensity. Human ships took heavy damage, but the Vorlak losses were greater. Then, 3 hours in, disaster struck. The Vorlak launched a new weapon, an energy pulse that disabled the engines of the main human fleet. "We're trapped," reported Sue, her usual calm slipping. "They're surrounding us." Gia looked at the tactical display. Their main ships couldn't move, but there was another option, a dangerous one. "Signal Admiral Han," she ordered. "Execute Protocol Sacrifice." On the surface of the planet, Admiral Han received the message and immediately mobilized the ground forces. Using small transport ships that had been hidden on the surface, they launched directly toward the Vorlak Emperor's vessel. "The Emperor thinks he understands human warriors," Han told his troops as they approached. "Let's show him what he's missing." The Vorlak, focused on the disabled human fleet, didn't notice the small ships until they attached to the Emperor's vessel. Han's forces breached the hull and fought their way through, losing many soldiers, but advancing steadily toward the command center. Meanwhile, Commander Su had taken the few remaining functional ships on a seemingly suicidal charge directly at the Emperor's vessel. This distraction allowed Han's forces to reach their target with fewer losses. Han's team reached the Emperor's command center just as Su's ships engaged the vessel's outer defenses. The Emperor, a towering grey figure with 4 arms and eyes, that glowed red with anger, faced the human admiral. "You cannot defeat me," growled the Emperor. "I am stronger than any human." "Probably," agreed Han calmly. "But strength isn't everything." At that moment, Jia's voice came through Han's communication device. "Now, Su." Commander Su's ships fired on specific points on the Emperor's vessel, points that Han's ground team had marked with beacons. The precision strikes disabled the ship's main systems without destroying it. The Emperor roared in anger and lunged at Han, but the Admiral had expected this. He ducked under the attack, and his team fired stun weapons from all sides. Even the mighty Emperor couldn't fight effectively when surrounded. "This is the difference between us," said Han as the Emperor fell to his knees. "You fight alone, we fight together." Within hours, news of the Emperor's capture spread through the Vorlak fleet. Without their leader, and faced with the unexpected, human tactics, the invasion force began to retreat. 3 days later, Jia, Han, and Su stood before the full Confederation Council in the restored capital chamber. Representatives of all species, including humans, were present. "The Vorlak threat has been contained," reported Jia. "Their leadership has agreed to peace terms, and their forces have withdrawn from Confederation space." High Counselor Rill, who had once sent humans into exile, stood. "The Confederation owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. We misjudged you. We saw only your capacity for violence, not your capacity for protection." The new Confederation Charter was signed that day. It acknowledged that true peace required the strength to defend it. Humans were welcomed back not just as members, but as leaders of the new Confederation Defense Force. 5 years later, Jia stood on a balcony overlooking the training grounds of the Galactic Defense Academy. Below, Captain Mina Lee instructed a group of cadets, humans learning alongside young aliens from 20 different species. "They're working well together," said Tay, now Supreme Commander of the Defense Force, as he joined Jia at the railing. Jia nodded, watching as a human cadet helped a young Reelan with a fighting stance. "We teach them to fight," Jia said, "so they'll know when not to." "And that's what the Vorlak never understood about us," replied Tay. "The true warrior knows that the greatest victory is the battle avoided." Below, the mixed group of cadets completed their exercise and stood at attention. Their uniforms bore the new Confederation emblem, a star surrounded by a protective circle, a symbol of light guarded by those willing to stand in darkness to defend it. The warrior heritage of humanity had found its true purpose at last.